Good morning, Rabotai. Breakfast in the class today is sponsored by Sammy Sutton and dedicated in loving memory, in honor of our dear Gabbai Haron Tochet, and also dedicated in loving memory Lilu Nishma Dina Bat Farida, Alea Shalom, sponsored by Lizette and David Gindi and family. And the week of Cold Brew is dedicated in loving memory of Sammy Sayed, Lilu Nishmat Shlomo Ben Rivka, sponsored by his son Isaac Sayed. Rabotai, in this week's parasha, we read about the very first Shidduch. It's very interesting. Up until this point, right, there hasn't been any Shidduch-related chatter, right? Who does Adam Arishon marry? The only woman in the world. It's very easy. I always say it. If there was a, J swipe, there would be only one, he's Geheket, it's nobody else. Right? Chava swipes one way, Adam swipes one way, Chava, there's nobody, so there's no Shidduch angst. Then you find Abraham, everyone just takes for themselves a wife. There's no big deal made, over it. The very first time we find this quandary about who someone should marry is where? It's by Yitzchak Avinu. It's the first time. And I think there's a beautiful idea that's brought down amongst great Jewish thinkers that if a person wants to understand any given topic in the world, they should search for the first time that topic appears in the Torah, because where the Torah discusses an idea for the first time, it's a seminal review of that concept, and on a deeper level, it actually imbues that concept with its reality in the world. Again, let me share what that idea means. It's not just that the Torah chose in the first time discussing that issue to give it a little bit more press coverage, so that's a good place to study the topic. But rather, as we understand, the Gemara tells us, Histakel be'oraita ubara alma. God looked in the Torah and from it created the world. Now again, what that means is beyond the scope of a shiur like this in the morning, hekeh for 20 minutes, but at the same time, the idea that reality stems from Torah and not the other way around would indicate that the first time an idea, a concept, a thing is described in the Torah, that is its place of creation. So whatever goes into it, in that story, in that original story, is what must go into it in every single time for all of the future in order for that to be an accurate representation of that idea. So if you want to know what a good Shidduch is, look at the first time it talks about a Shidduch. And where is that? That is in the time of Yitzchak. Yitzchak's father, Abraham, wants to make sure that his son winds up with the right woman. So he tells Eliezer, please, I want you to go to this place, a place where my family is from, and Eliezer travels to that place. Now the problem with this concept is that it's a very strange idea, because normally if Abraham would have said to you, please, I want you to find a relevant match for my daughter, you'd think, where's Abraham going to tell you to go? He's going to tell you to go to a place where people have a very similar mindset to him. But what do we know about the place that Abraham was born in? The place that Abraham was told by God to leave behind. We know that the town, after hearing Abraham's views, put him through a furnace of fire. So what in the world is Abraham looking for in this town that he had to leave? It's very strange, right? Ki el moladeti, don't go here. I want you to go back over there. What's going on? So Rabotai, there's a couple of tremendous lessons I think that are here to learn from. The Sefarim tell us that one of Abraham's defining traits was the fact that Abraham was immovable. He was ivri, he was be'ever hanahar, he was on one side of the river, while everyone else was on the other side of the river. That term, Hebrews, right? The ivrim, it comes from the fact that Midrash explains that Abraham was able to stand alone on one side of the river while everyone else ideologically stood somewhere else. We too, as the Jewish people, have merited throughout the times in the world to stand alone, whether it was in the belief of one God, whether it was in understanding and valuing the value of human life, whether it was talking about as a concept, as an ideal to support the weak and the sick and the vulnerable. These were ideas that Judaism gave the world, even when we were alone in those ideas and ideals. And that's why we say about the Jewish people, Na'am levadad yishkon. They are a people who dwell alone. We're proud of this concept, that we are capable of living by our, we are consistent, and we stick with our ideals even when it's difficult. Rabotai, when we look at the people of Abraham's area, although they actually got behind the wrong idea, they were people who would not flip-flop from their ideals. Now, it's true that at the time they believed in Avodah Zarah, and the ideal was wrong. But the fact that they would stick, that they were consistent, that they fought for what they believed in, that even when Abraham seemed to illustrate that their ideas about their gods were incorrect, they still were willing to pose the same question to Hevel, to Abraham's brother. So you see, these are a people who they're not wowed by the fact that someone did a miracle or someone seems out of the ordinary. My belief system remains my belief system. Abraham knew that it would take people like that to be able to build his dream of being an Am HaNivchar. If you have the wrong ideas, you can be taught. If you have the wrong midot, those are much harder, says the Brisker Rav, to uproot. So he tells his servant Eliezer, he says, I want you to find a wife for my daughter. And it's true that there might be a lot of people over here who are enlightened in the camp of Avraham. He had people who followed in the ways of Hashem. Why is he going back to the place, to the house of Lavan, and to the house of Lot, and to the house of, of Nahor? What does he have to search out for there? And the answer is that he'd rather work with someone who has good midot than work with someone who has good ideas. Rabotai, we learned from this. You're trying to marry off a child. The very first thing you look for in a match is midot. Even if they're a little bit less religious, but they have better midot, better someone with better midot who's a little less religious than someone who's a little more religious but has a character which is mushchat. Why? Because to change an idea needs a person to express to them a new idea. You flip the lights on, you can change someone's mind. To change your mind is easier than to change your way. Number one, lesson number one in Shidduchim. Lesson number two, Rabotai, and this is so important. Now, obviously, there's a gulf that a person needs to overcome. Let's say a person has great midot, but he's an atheist, and you're living a religious life. We're not going to say, that, because again, you have no... The second thing, Rabotai, is we learned from Eliezer that Eliezer chooses for the wife of Yitzhak somebody that you would not imagine would match with Yitzchak. We know Abraham's midah. What was his midah? His character trait was the midah of chesed. What was the midah of Yitzchak? Givurah, strength. So when Eliezer gets to town, the prayer of Eliezer should not look the way it does. Eliezer prays and says, I'm going to come to the well, I'm going to ask someone to give me some water. I'm very thirsty from having gone through the desert. And the woman who says, not only am I going to give you to drink, but I'm going to give your camels to drink, that's the one. What kind of chesed that is, that not only does she fulfill what's asked of her, she goes the extra mile, she takes care even of animals, not just of human beings. That shows a midah of kindness. Why doesn't he look for someone that has a midah of givurah? How come Eliezer says, Hashem, you know what? I'm going to look for the wife now. I'm going to leave jewelry around the well. The first woman who doesn't steal the jewelry, that's someone who's showing good moral character, givurah, right? I'm going to try and trick somebody into doing a avon, right? The first person who stands my test and shows that they are strong in the ways of God, that they are someone who could represent I'm going to call a minyan for 4 a.m. The people who turn up to the minyan, they get themselves out of bed, that show strong moral character. That's a perfect shidduch. They're exactly like Yitzchak. A lot of times people are looking for somebody who is the female or the male version of themselves. But what we're learning here from Eliezer is that that's not how a shidduch works. That's not how a person finds a good match for themselves. In a certain way, you're looking for someone who is not the opposite of you, but the complement of you. Avraham, who's the man of chesed, looks for whom? Sarah Imenu. Every time we see Sarah interacting in the Torah, you see din, you see judgment, you see givurah. The result of that was that Yitzchak now has the flip side. He's givurah. What does he need to look for? He looks for a woman who's the epitome of chesed. Now I love the idea that at the end of the parasha, it tells us that Yitzchak brings Rivka into the tent of his mother, Vayinachem, and he finds comfort from the fact that he's lost his mother. First of all, if that is not a commentary on Jewish men, that in their wife they're looking for someone to replace their mother, I don't know what it is. But either way, what does it say over there that he gets nechama from his mother? It says over there that all of the special miracles that Sarah had in her tent were mitkayem with Rivka. Right? It says there was a beracha in the bread, the lights would, burn, the candles would burn during the week, all different things, miracles that happened in the tent of Sarah because she was a sadeket. This always bothered me. Let me tell you why. You bring Rivka into the tent, she's different to Sarah. She's the opposite. Sarah is Din, as we said. Rivka represents chesed and kindness. So Rivka's miracles should have been different miracles. The way Yitzchak should have been comforted for his mother is, look, this is an amazing wife. She's going to help you build the Jewish people. And you know how? Because every time she tries to do chesed, like as an example, you know what should have brought him comfort? It says by Eliezer that she went to draw water from the well, and a miracle happened that the water rose to the bucket that she was drawing the water from. Those should have been the miracles that expressed themselves by Rivka. That's what should have made Yitzchak say. The answer is no, incorrect. The beracha of Sarah was not that she was givurah, that she represented, strength of character. The beracha of Sarah in the tent was expressed that the shiluv, the combination of her and Abraham, created a whole, a perfect, a shalem that brought beracha to the home. When Rivka complemented Yitzchak, that brought beracha to the home. Okay? When HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells us that creating Chava is Ezer Kinegdo, is a helpmate opposite him, the Gemara says, well, is she a helpmate or is she opposite him? Answers the Gemara, if he merits, she's a Ezer, she helps. If he doesn't merit, Kinegdo. A person should look in his own house and figure out if he merited or not merited by how much trouble he has with his wife. Is she always opposite him? Then he knows lo zacha. If she helps him, zacha. That's what the Gemara says. But I think there's a deeper meaning over here as well. Zacha doesn't mean if he did mitzvot, his wife helps him. If he didn't do mitzvot, then his wife does. I would have thought the opposite. The answer is, zakah, if a person is done well, what does she do? She helps him. Lo zacha kinegdo, she stands opposite him, not as a punishment, but as a fixer. She offsets the problem of lo zacha. So when a person is looking in the story of Shidduchim to find someone, they have to find in what areas do they need complementing. Now, there's no question that in your mind, you think you find someone like you, it's easier to live with. By the way, every guy who ever went to yeshiva or college and had roommates who were guys, they think that when they're going to get married, it's going to be a roommate, but she's not going to smell bad, right? She's going to clean up because she's not going to be a filthy guy. And they think it's going to be the same, but, different benefits that the person's going to have because, she'll bring style to the place, warmth to the place, right? And they're in for a rude awakening, Rabotai, a lot of times. Because guys, they don't mind if it's this, they don't mind if it's that, they don't mind stacked dishes in the sink, right? What's the problem? We'll wash them all together on Thursday. The guys don't understand it's certainly more utilitarian, a little bit disgusting. But the point is, and then all of a sudden you marry in many ways, a woman is your opposite. It's asking for disaster, I think. I think, Rabotai, that what we have to realize is that while inviting your opposite into your home is a recipe for many different challenges, it's those challenges that actually create a whole and a happy home. One of you is going to be naturally more of a disciplinarian, and one of you naturally is going to be more of the one that gives the kids that extra love and support. But to give one or the other is to ruin children. To give children only discipline and not love, you ruin the child. Yes, the kid may get more done, but they'll be a broken shell of a human being. You give the kid only love, he feels very loved, but he doesn't accomplish anything. These two opposites are required in creating a child. You know, I'm a person, I'm not so, I'm not so, misudar. One person is the dreamer and one person is the anchor. It's not that they're the opposite. If you're not anchored, your dreams never go anywhere. So it is that friction and that opposite and that opposition which creates something. Interesting thing to think about this in politics as well. Having an opposition government, you think it's crazy. Choose which one do you like, Republicans or Democrats? Let that be the country. The answer is no. Having opposing ideas always sharpens and eventually creates, every party is always complaining. They took that legislation from us. That was in our bill first. You know what? Halevai, that you should come up with a good idea and the opposition party in the government should extend, and who cares? It's not about the credit. It's about perfecting and making a better union, okay? So having those oppositional forces actually always, over the long term, sharpens and refines the direction in which a person is going. But Rabotai, it's not just opposition in marriage, which is good. That person in your office that always does things different to you, they're making your workplace a better workplace. That's the definition of bringing these different strengths into the office. Haron, unfortunately, has to deal with me. I'm in some ways the opposite of him, right? I'm a very quiet person. Haron doesn't stop talking like that. He's very, very loud also. Haron, he's dedicated today in his honor, but if you could dial down the volume a little bit, Haron, it's a little bit more introversion would probably be benefit. The best thing is there's people on this video who never met Haron. Now they have this picture of a very loud guy who's bossing people around. There can be nothing more calm and serene, even sedate as Haron Shochet. His last name Shochet, his bark is worse than his bite. He never slaughtered a thing in his life. Okay, Rabotai, I wanna illustrate that this is true not just about Shidduchim. It's true about the office. So that annoying business partner, they're making you better. That family member is making you better. The situation in life that you are in, which doesn't match your personality, that's your Rivka. That brings blessing to your home. You are growing only when you are uncomfortable. Hashem should bless us to be able to see this ideal, that when we have Givurah, we're seeking Chesed. When we have Chesed, we're seeking Givurah. And when we're calm and relaxed, we're seeking to be agitated a little bit, to be uncomfortable a little bit. Being uncomfortable in your religion, pushing yourself a little bit harder than your Rabbi, come on, it's so easy. We're always making it, everything always has to be hard. Yeah, if it's not hard, you're not working. If you're not working, why are you even alive? To merit another day means to find another peak to climb. That is the nature of the world that we live in and the purpose of the life that we live. May Hashem bless us to always see the challenges and the difficult and different personalities as in our life, not as kilalot, but as berachot. Baruch Adonai leolam. Amen.